Australia's Channel 7 will air a never-before-seen look at Meghan Markle, featuring an extraordinary message from her family, including Thomas Markle, her dad, who I'm glad to report is re-finding his voice.
I think she's taking advantage of a very weakened man.
To have a look at the bombshell trailer, which has just been released.
My message would be,
Thomas Markle's voice cracked with raw emotion as he faced the camera, his words barely audible through the pain of both his physical recovery and his shattered heart. The man who once walked Meghan down the aisle, who supported her dreams and believed in her future, now sat broken and pleading for just one conversation with his daughter. His stroke had left visible marks, his mouth slightly distorted, a constant reminder of how close death had come knocking. But what was killing him wasn't the physical aftermath, it was the silence from Montecito.
The thing for me that is actually most upsetting is that Thomas Markle is a decent human being. He is a good guy.
In footage that has sent shockwaves through royal circles, Thomas made a desperate plea that no father should ever have to make. "How can I fix this?" he asked, his eyes filled with the kind of pain that comes from loving someone who has completely erased you from their life. Here was a man who had given everything to his daughter, who had worked tirelessly in Hollywood to provide for her, now reduced to begging through television interviews just to get her attention. The vulnerability in his voice was heartbreaking, the desperation undeniable. What makes this moment even more devastating is the context. Thomas isn't asking for money, for fame, or for anything material. He's asking for the most basic human connection, a phone call, a text message, any sign that the daughter he raised still remembers he exists. The man who suffered a stroke that nearly claimed his life, who battles daily with the physical effects of that medical emergency, shouldn't have to fight this hard just to speak to his own child. Yet here he was, making his plea public because private attempts had failed completely. The contrast couldn't be starker. While Meghan posts carefully curated social media content about compassion and kindness, her own father sits in Mexico, isolated and heartbroken. While she speaks about the importance of family and connection in her various projects and interviews, the man who gave her life can't even get a response to his messages. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife, and Thomas's breakdown has exposed this hypocrisy in the most painful way possible. But this wasn't just a moment of weakness or a cry for attention. This was a father finally reaching his breaking point after years of being shut out, ignored, and essentially erased from his daughter's narrative.
for several weeks, every day I try to text her. I just haven't received any comment back.
And what's coming next makes his emotional plea look like just the beginning of a much larger reckoning. The stroke that nearly killed Thomas Markle became the ultimate test of family loyalty, and Meghan failed spectacularly. When her father collapsed, fighting for his life in a Mexican hospital, where was the daughter who preaches about compassion and mental health awareness? Nowhere to be found. The woman who can fly across the world for a photo opportunity, who can make surprise appearances at charity events, couldn't be bothered to check on the man who raised her when he was literally fighting for survival. The physical evidence of Thomas's medical emergency is impossible to ignore. The slight distortion of his mouth, the way his speech has been affected, the visible signs that this was no minor health scare but a life-threatening event that has left permanent marks. Yet even seeing her father in this condition, even knowing how close she came to losing him forever, Meghan's response was complete radio silence. The coldness is breathtaking, the lack of basic human decency shocking even by her standards. Lady Colin Campbell, who has known the Markle family personally, didn't mince words about what this reveals. "He can't fix it because he didn't break it," she stated with the kind of brutal honesty that cuts through all the public relations spin.
You can see how difficult it is for him to speak because he's still recovering from the stroke that nearly took his life.
Here's a man who suffered a stroke that left him with permanent physical effects, and he's being made to feel like he's the problem. The psychological cruelty of this situation cannot be overstated. Thomas isn't just dealing with his physical recovery, he's battling the emotional devastation of being abandoned by his daughter when he needed her most. What makes this even more heartbreaking is the timing. This medical emergency happened at a point when Thomas had been trying to rebuild bridges, when he'd been hoping for reconciliation. Instead of bringing them together, his brush with death became another wall between them. Meghan's complete absence during his recovery wasn't just neglectful, it was a clear statement about what she really thinks of the man who gave her everything.
Well, I've been quiet for 6 months, and no one's returned anything back to me. No one said a word to me. I'm confused by it.
The stroke changed Thomas physically, but it also changed him emotionally. It gave him a clarity about his daughter that he hadn't wanted to face before. A man facing his own mortality doesn't have time for games, for public relations strategies, or for pretending everything is fine when it clearly isn't. And what Thomas began to see in those hospital days would soon explode into revelations that would shake Meghan's carefully constructed image to its core. Lady Colin Campbell didn't just agree with Thomas Markle's assessment of his daughter. She delivered a masterclass in royal truth-telling that left no doubt about where she stands. With decades of insider knowledge and connections to the highest levels of British society, Lady C's support of Thomas carries serious weight. When she speaks, people listen. And what she said about Meghan's treatment of her father was absolutely devastating.
All he's asking of Meghan, Lady C, is how can I fix this?
What Thomas Markle did was simply trying to restore his dignity, which was really a bag of tail compared to what they've done. Lady C declared with the kind of brutal honesty that has made her a feared voice in royal circles. She wasn't just defending Thomas, she was exposing the massive hypocrisy at the heart of Meghan's victim narrative. Here's a woman who has made millions talking about privacy violations and media intrusion, yet she's completely destroyed her own father's privacy and dignity through years of public abandonment. The comparison Lady C drew was particularly damaging. While Thomas's worst crime was trying to stage some photos to restore his reputation, Meghan and Harry have violated everyone's privacy, told countless lies, and given intrusive interviews that have damaged the monarchy itself. The scale is completely different, yet somehow Thomas is being treated as the villain, while Meghan positions herself as the wronged party. Lady C called out this twisted logic with the kind of precision that only comes from understanding exactly how these games are played. But Lady C went further, identifying the pattern that makes Meghan so dangerous to everyone around her.
I find out after the fact, and I have to deal with that. That's okay. But there's always disappointment here.
The problem with Meghan and Harry is there's so many subtexts with their narratives. They just throw things out the way people throw sand in everybody's face. This isn't random behavior. It's a calculated strategy of confusion and misdirection. Keep everyone guessing. Keep changing the story. Never let anyone pin down the truth long enough to hold you accountable. What makes Lady C's support so significant is that she's not some tabloid journalist or random critic. She has genuine connections to both the royal family and Hollywood circles. She understands the games being played at the highest levels, and she's seen through Meghan's act completely. When someone with her credibility and connections backs Thomas Markle's version of events, it's not just opinion, it's insider confirmation of what many have suspected for years. The message was clear. Thomas Markle is telling the truth about his daughter, and the people who really know what's going on are finally ready to say so publicly. The cruelest twist in this family tragedy isn't just the silence, it's the proximity.
But she continues to ignore him.
Harry and Meghan live in luxury in Montecito, California, while Thomas Markle sits alone in Mexico, just a short drive away. Think about that for a moment. They could literally be having dinner with him tomorrow night if they wanted to. Instead, they've chosen to treat the border between their countries like an impenetrable wall, using geography as an excuse for the emotional distance they've deliberately created. Phil Dampau captured the absurdity perfectly when he pointed out that they can't be bothered to go down the road and see him in Mexico. This isn't about continents or time zones or complicated travel arrangements. This is about a daughter who has decided that her father isn't worth a weekend trip. They'll travel to New York for galas, to London for events, anywhere their brand needs to be seen, but a man recovering from a stroke who just wants to see his daughter, apparently that's too much trouble. But Harry's comment about Meghan losing her father revealed something even more sinister about how they view this situation. She hasn't lost him, she's discarded him. There's a massive difference between someone dying and someone being deliberately erased from your life.
August 4th, 40 years ago, Meghan was born, and she was born as a C-section, so she was put in my arms.
Harry's casual dismissal of Thomas as already gone shows a breathtaking level of callousness, especially coming from someone who actually did lose his mother. He knows what real loss feels like, which makes his participation in this emotional cruelty even more disturbing. The distance game isn't just about geography, it's about power. By refusing to visit, by maintaining this artificial separation, Meghan is sending a message to her father and to the world. She's saying that reconciliation will only happen on her terms. When she decides, if she ever decides, Thomas can plead, he can have medical emergencies, he can make public appeals, but none of that matters because she holds all the cards. The psychological warfare is sophisticated and devastating. What makes this even more painful is that Thomas clearly still believes reconciliation is possible. His question, "How can I fix this?" shows a man who would do anything to repair the relationship. He's not asking for apologies or acknowledgments of wrongdoing, he's asking how he can make things right. Meanwhile, his daughter treats him like he's already dead. The proximity makes every day of silence a fresh wound. Every morning, Thomas wakes up knowing his daughter is just hours away, and every night he goes to bed knowing she's chosen once again not to reach out. What Thomas Markle is revealing about his daughter goes far beyond typical family drama or celebrity gossip. He's exposing a pattern of behavior that shows manipulation and betrayal aren't recent developments in Meghan's character. They're foundational elements of who she's always been. The man who raised her, who saw her through her struggling actress years, who supported her dreams when nobody else believed in them, is now painting a picture of someone who uses people until they're no longer useful, then discards them without a second thought. According to sources close to the family, Thomas has stories about Meghan's behavior dating back years before she ever met Harry.
The reality is he can't fix it. There's nothing for him to do.
Stories about how she treated friends who helped her career once she moved up to higher social circles. Stories about promises made and broken, about relationships severed the moment they became inconvenient. The pattern was there long before she became a duchess, but now it's playing out on the world stage with devastating consequences for everyone involved. The most chilling aspect of what Thomas is revealing isn't the big dramatic moments, it's the calculated coldness of the small ones. The way birthdays went unacknowledged, the way family traditions were abandoned without explanation, the way communication just stopped as if he had ceased to exist. This isn't the behavior of someone overwhelmed by royal life or struggling with media pressure. This is the behavior of someone who has made a deliberate choice to erase her past in service of her future image. Lady C's observation about Meghan's victim positioning becomes even more significant when viewed through this lens. If Thomas's account is accurate, then Meghan has been rewriting history and positioning herself as wronged her entire life.
I was the first person to hold her little hand went on my fingers like that, and I fell in love with her, and I had been that way for 40 years.
Every relationship that ended badly wasn't her fault. Every bridge that burned was someone else's responsibility. Every person who called out her behavior was jealous or bitter or lying. It's a sophisticated psychological strategy that has allowed her to move through life without ever taking accountability for the damage she leaves behind. But perhaps the most devastating revelation is how completely Meghan has been able to separate herself emotionally from the consequences of her actions. A normal person would struggle with cutting off their father, would feel guilt or sadness or some emotional cost for such a drastic decision. The fact that she appears to have moved on without any visible difficulty suggests a level of emotional compartmentalization that's genuinely disturbing. Thomas isn't just losing his daughter, he's finally seeing her clearly for the first time. And what he's seeing is someone he no longer recognizes as the child he raised. Australia's Channel 7 has struck absolute gold with their upcoming documentary, and the timing couldn't be more explosive.
But he can't fix it. He didn't break it. It's up to her to fix it.
This isn't just another rehash of old stories or recycled interviews. They've uncovered never-before-seen footage and secured testimonies from the Markle family that promise to blow Meghan's carefully constructed narrative to pieces. The trailer alone has sent shockwaves through entertainment and royal circles, giving just a glimpse of what appears to be the most damaging exposé of Meghan's character ever assembled. What makes this documentary particularly devastating is the level of access Channel 7 has managed to secure. This isn't distant speculation or anonymous sources, this is her own family speaking on record with receipts, with documentation, with evidence that contradicts years of Meghan's public statements about her upbringing and relationships. The Australians have clearly done their homework, and they're not holding back in their pursuit of the truth about the Duchess of Sussex. The timing of this release is absolutely perfect from a dramatic standpoint, but catastrophic for Meghan's already struggling public image. Just as she's trying to relaunch her brand, just as she's attempting to position herself as a serious businesswoman and philanthropist, her own family is about to remind the world of who she really is behind the carefully managed facade. The documentary promises to show a side of Meghan that her expensive public relations team has worked overtime to bury. Sources suggest that the footage includes family moments that directly contradict Meghan's various claims about her childhood, her relationship with her father, and the circumstances that led to their estrangement. If even half of what's being promised makes it to air, it could completely destroy the victim narrative that has been so central to Meghan's public persona. When your own family has receipts that prove you've been lying, there's nowhere left to hide. The international aspect of this documentary makes it even more dangerous for Meghan. This isn't just American tabloid coverage or British royal reporting, this is a major international broadcaster with serious credibility, putting their reputation behind these revelations.
Okay. Alright, am I there?
I really do miss it.
Channel 7 wouldn't be promoting this so heavily unless they were confident in their sources and their evidence. But what's really terrifying for Meghan is that this documentary represents just the beginning. Once Thomas and the rest of her family start talking publicly with this level of detail and documentation, other people from her past might find the courage to come forward with their own stories. For the first time since Meghan's royal wedding, the entire Markle family is speaking with one voice, and that voice is telling a story that completely destroys everything Meghan has said about her upbringing and her relationships. Samantha Markle and Tom Jr. aren't just supporting their father out of loyalty, they're adding their own experiences witnesses and evidence to a growing mountain of testimony that paints Meghan as someone who systematically erases people from her life the moment they become inconvenient. Samantha has been particularly vocal about the way Meghan has rewritten their family history, turning a loving, supportive household into some kind of dysfunctional nightmare to fit her victim narrative. The sister who watched Meghan grow up, who shared holidays and birthdays and family moments, is now publicly calling out the lies and distortions that have become central to Meghan's public story. When your own sibling says you're lying about your childhood, that's not jealousy or bitterness, that's someone who was there correcting the record. Tom Jr. brings a different perspective, but the same conclusion.
He is pleading with her just to get in touch.
As the son who maintained his relationship with Thomas, who saw firsthand how devastated their father was by Meghan's abandonment, his testimony carries particular weight. He's not someone on the outside looking in. He's someone who witnessed the aftermath of Meghan's decisions, who saw what her silence did to their father during his darkest moments. What makes this family unity so powerful is that they're not asking for anything from Meghan except basic human decency. They're not seeking money or fame or revenge. They're asking for acknowledgement, for communication, for the kind of basic family connection that most people take for granted. Their requests are so reasonable, so fundamentally human, that Meghan's continued refusal makes her look increasingly cold and calculating. The siblings have also provided crucial context about Thomas's attempts to stage those famous paparazzi photos. Rather than some calculated scheme to embarrass Meghan, they paint it as the desperate act of a father who had been completely shut out of the most important moment of his daughter's life. A man who was being portrayed in the media as absent or uninterested when the reality was that he was being deliberately excluded from the wedding planning process. Together, the Markle family is presenting a united front that's impossible to dismiss as the rantings of bitter relatives.
I made one dumb mistake, and I'm never being forgiven for it.
These are people who loved Meghan, who supported her dreams, who celebrated her success, and who are now publicly calling out the way she's treated them since achieving fame. While Thomas Markle breaks down over his daughter's abandonment, Harry's own credibility is imploding in spectacular fashion in a London courtroom. Mr. Justice Fancourt has essentially called Prince Harry a liar without using those exact words, pointing out glaring inconsistencies in his phone hacking claims that reveal a man who will say anything to win his crusade against the British press. The timing couldn't be more damaging, as Harry's legal dishonesty perfectly mirrors the pattern of deception that Thomas is exposing about Meghan. The judge's observations were devastating in their precision. Harry claimed to know about a secret agreement between newsgroup newspapers and Buckingham Palace that prevented him from suing in 2012, while simultaneously claiming he only understood the scale of phone hacking in 2019. You can't have it both ways, and Justice Fancourt made it clear that Harry's witness statement was completely at variance with his original claims. In legal terms, that's about as close as a judge gets to calling someone an unreliable witness.
And the fact that they're now living in America and they can't be bothered to go down the road and see them in Mexico, I think it's absolutely cruel. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Lady Colin Campbell's interpretation was even more brutal and direct. The judge is saying very elegantly, he thinks Harry is lying, that he has come up with a new version of the facts. This isn't about legal technicalities or procedural issues. This is about a fundamental lack of credibility that goes to the heart of Harry's character. When judges start questioning your truthfulness, your entire case becomes suspect, regardless of any legitimate grievances you might have. But the most damaging aspect of Harry's legal strategy isn't just the inconsistencies, it's the way he's weaponizing these lawsuits against his own family. In his witness statement, he attacked Charles, Camilla, and William just 9 days before the coronation. This wasn't about seeking justice for phone hacking. This was about maximum psychological damage at the moment when it would hurt his family most. The pattern is unmistakable and deeply disturbing. Phil Dampier captured the destructive nature of Harry's legal crusade perfectly when he called it deranged.
This show that they're on, they talk about compassion. There's no compassion for me. There's no compassion for my family.
Here's someone who could have settled quietly like his brother William did in 2020, but instead chose to turn his lawsuits into public warfare against everyone who has ever crossed him. The legal system isn't his personal therapy session, but Harry seems determined to use it as exactly that. The real question now is what happens when Harry loses these cases, because the inconsistencies in his testimony make that outcome increasingly likely. Will he finally step back from this destructive path, or will he double down and become even more isolated from reality? The Lakers basketball game was supposed to be Harry and Meghan's big romantic comeback moment, complete with kiss cam drama and carefully orchestrated public displays of affection. Instead, it became one of the most painfully obvious pieces of theater in recent memory, with Meghan literally pulling away from Harry when the cameras caught them. If you needed proof that their relationship is more about brand management than genuine romance, that moment of visible rejection provided it in high definition. But the real story wasn't what happened on the kiss cam. It was who was sitting around them. This wasn't a romantic date night between husband and wife. This was a business meeting disguised as entertainment. Their lawyer, their public relations executive, and multiple Archwell employees surrounded them like some kind of corporate protection squad.
Do you see similarities in the way Harry has treated Charles and the way Meghan has treated you?
Yes, I see them both ghosting their families.
Lady Colin Campbell nailed it when she described it as costing around $20,000 to have their charity employees attend what was supposed to be a private romantic evening. The timing of this staged appearance was no coincidence either. Lady C pointed out that it was deliberately scheduled to compete with Prince Louis's birthday and to muscle in on the coronation coverage. Everything about the Sussexes is calculated for maximum media impact, and this Lakers game was just another move in their endless game of public relations chess. The problem is that their moves are becoming increasingly transparent and desperate. Phil Dampier's observation that it looked more like the office party than a romantic night out captured the absurdity perfectly. When you need to bring your entire professional team to create the illusion of marital happiness, you've already lost the plot. Real couples don't need lawyers and publicists to validate their relationship for the cameras. The fact that Harry and Meghan apparently do tells you everything about the current state of their marriage. The kiss cam rejection became symbolic of something much larger than just an awkward moment at a sporting event. Here was Meghan, in front of thousands of people and television cameras, unable or unwilling to engage in even the most basic display of affection with her husband. Whether it was calculated image management or genuine discomfort, the optics were absolutely devastating for a couple trying to dispel separation rumors. But perhaps most tellingly, this staged romance charade happened to coincide with Meghan's latest reinvention attempt. New hairstyle, new look, new public relations strategy, all designed to distract from the growing chorus of voices calling out her behavior. Unfortunately for Meghan, you can't stage your way out of the truth forever. The walls are closing in on Meghan Markle, and there's nowhere left to run from the truth that's been building for years. Thomas Markle's emotional breakdown isn't happening in isolation. It's the culmination of a pattern that too many people have witnessed firsthand. When your own father, your siblings, royal experts with insider knowledge, and even judges in legal proceedings all start questioning your credibility, you can't keep blaming everyone else for the narrative that's emerging. What makes this moment so significant is that it represents a turning point in how Meghan's story is being told. For years, she's controlled the narrative through carefully managed interviews, strategic media appearances, and a public relations machine that positioned her as the perpetual victim of other people's jealousy and prejudice. But when multiple independent sources start telling the same story about manipulation, abandonment, and calculated cruelty, that narrative becomes impossible to maintain. The convergence of all these revelations creates a perfect storm that threatens to destroy everything Meghan has built since leaving the royal family. Thomas's breakdown reveals the human cost of her ambition. The Australian documentary promises documented evidence of her true character. Harry's legal troubles show the same pattern of deception and blame shifting. Even their staged public appearances reveal a couple more concerned with optics than genuine connection. Lady Colin Campbell's assessment cuts to the heart of what's really happening here. Meghan's celebrity has become pretty much infamy, and that transformation didn't happen by accident. When you systematically burn bridges with family members, royal institutions, media organizations, and anyone else who challenges your version of events, eventually people start to see the common denominator in all these conflicts. The tragedy of Thomas Markle's situation is that he still believes this can be fixed, that somehow his daughter might remember the man who raised her and supported her dreams, but the evidence suggests that the Meghan he knew no longer exists, if she ever truly did. The woman who can stage romantic moments for cameras but can't spare a phone call for her recovering father has made her priorities crystal clear. The real question now isn't whether Meghan will reconcile with her family or repair her damaged relationships. It's whether she can survive the avalanche of truth that's finally catching up with her. When your own father breaks down on international television begging for basic human decency, when your credibility is being questioned in courtrooms and boardrooms, when your carefully constructed image starts cracking under the weight of evidence, what's left? Drop your thoughts below, like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video is waiting, and you won't believe what's coming next.